This week's episode of Gangsta was, dare I say it, balls to the wall, badass awesomeness. Twilight versus Twilight. Nicholas versus Doug. This week's episode also saw the formal introduction of the Paulklee Guild, this group of militarized Twilight mercenaries for hire, and they're led by Gina Paulklee, a woman with brass balls. I love when a series gets better with every single episode, and that was very evident in this week's episode of Gangsta, which was action-packed, had the best animation that we've seen from the series, and introduced a slew of new characters who are undoubtedly going to shake up the rest of the series. But first, let's talk about the highlight of this week's episode, Nicholas versus Doug on the rooftop with the amazing animation. The fighting choreography here was great, and I almost expected that it was going to be really, really bad, because at the very beginning of the episode, they started fighting, and I'm like, okay, this is pretty good, the choreography is nice, but it doesn't really have that much fluidity or impact behind it. As soon as I thought that, they immediately showed them fighting on the rooftops with these amazing camera sweeps, amazing choreography, which was very hard-hitting, and they're literally just bouncing around, fighting through the streets, crashing through walls into buildings. It's a pretty amazing battle, and definitely the best action sequence that I've seen from the series thus far. Throughout most of the fight scene in this week's episode, it seems like Nicholas and Doug are on equal terms. That is until we learn that Nicholas is actually overdosing on that drug known as Celeber, which is allowing him to go into berserker mode, and it also makes it so he doesn't feel pain anymore, and that really freaks out Doug, and he actually ends up destroying his weapons and is getting ready to finish him off. The problem is, they learn at the last moment that when you play with fire, you get burned. And they learn, of course, that Doug is a part of the Paulklee Guild, and that's when Gina and her subordinate Ginger show up to save Doug and to teach both Doug and Nicholas a lesson that you shouldn't fuck with the 3 rules. Gina is a hardcore ass-kicking lady, and she decides to pump both Nicholas and Doug full of these downers, which completely knock them out, and she even leaves Doug in the streets, and that's when Warwick has to forcibly carry both him and Nicholas all the way to Dr. Theo's office. I also really liked that other female Twilight who goes by the name of Ginger, who's this stuttering, timid-looking character, but when push comes to shove, she can prove that she's pretty effective in battle. She steals Warwick's gun and has him at point-blank range. She could have killed him at any moment. So clearly we know not to mess with the Paulklee Guild. Also, throughout the course of this episode, we also get some more scenes of Allie, who's still hanging out at the office and still being haunted by the deadly imagery of her old boss, Barry. She doesn't even know if he's actually still alive or not. It's really just all in her head. However, she is getting a visit from Dr. Theo, and at the very end of the episode, it seems like they both just went somewhere randomly. I really have no idea what's going on here, but I like that little added layer of mystery to this week's episode, despite the fact that this week's episode was just a big, action-packed, badass episode. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Gangsta? This one was so manly and awesome. This was the episode that I was certainly waiting for, and it just really made me care about these characters just a little bit more and all of the terrible things that they've gone through. There were also some things at the very beginning of the episode, just a quick flashback of seeing Warwick and Nicholas when they were younger, when they were interacting with Chad and Monroe, and of course just getting to see that Warwick seemed to be pretty okay with being a gigolo. But really, the best parts of this week's episode are indeed those action scenes, which were handled really freaking well. Definitely the best action I've seen from the series. Just the choreography was so well done, so fast and fluid, and they even know when to, like, stop it at the right time, so that you can really appreciate what these guys are doing and how acrobatic they are. I also still love the fact that this is about as probably hardcore as this series is gonna get, like, in terms of, like, how over the top it is. It still has a level of realism to it, despite the fact that these guys can wall jump like freaking Super Mario. It's still really awesome and refreshing from all the other ridiculousness that I see from a lot of other anime series. That, and of course, it's still very painfully unapologetic and a very adult type of anime series. Despite that, this is something that I think a lot of people should definitely check out. I honestly think it's going to be one of the bigger surprises of 2015, but we're just going to have to wait and see. What I will say is this episode just sucked me right in, and I was so absorbed in everything that was going on, and I really can't wait to see what they're going to do with the rest of the series. I really hope that they can keep this quality going, and that they can even up the quality just a little bit more, because as it stands, Gangster is a really great series with great characters, really great mysterious motivations, and some amazing action sequences. So I'm going to give this week's episode a 5 out of 5. It was definitely my favorite episode of the series thus far, and I really cannot wait to see where Gangsta is going to go from here. But I want to hear from you guys. Did you watch this week's episode of Gangsta? What did you think of the battle between Doug and Nicholas? And what do you want to see from the rest of this brand new action-packed anime series? Please tell me in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like the video, share it with all your friends, and subscribe to the channel and follow us on social media. You guys should also check out our weekly show, The Powerful Nerdcast. You can find that on our channel, and I'll also put links to that in the description box below so you can check us out on iTunes and on Rogue Intel. You can download the show for free. It's pretty awesome. But the best way, as always, to support our channel is to simply watch our videos, share them with your friends, and comment on the videos. So thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby.